Hi YouTube, this is the last of the teaching MTG 101 videos. I'm Paul, with me is Alex.
Hi.
We're going to be teaching you a lot of just miscellaneous things we didn't get to in other videos. First off is Exiling. So, usually when a creature dies, say Blade Tusk Boar, this pitiful 3/2 Intimidate, gets hit with a kill spell, it'll just go to the graveyard, but then I could do graveyard shenanigans to get it back in my hand, or perhaps
to the battlefield, whatever.
To the battlefield. So stuff goes to the graveyard. In some cases, it just doesn't stay dead.
Or anything that says destroy, as with Divine Verdict, it says destroy target attacking or blocking creature. If you were attacking with Blade Tusk Boar, destroy it, it goes to the graveyard.
Right. However, if you want something to not go to the graveyard and thus not go back to the other person's hand or to their battlefield, instead you should try and find a way to exile it. When something becomes exiled,
it leaves the game.
It leaves the game.
Literally.
Yeah. Now, some cards will say it's exiled until something happens, and then it'll re-enter the game. But there are some cards, too, that are just...
exile it.
It's exiled. It's gone. It'll never come back. There's no exile pile, really. It's just... you pretend
it's gone.
It's gone. It doesn't exist.
Yep.
But we'll show you a couple of the cards that do that. Probably the most used is a card that I love called O-Ring. It's a 3-drop enchantment. Just says when it enters the battlefield, exile another target, and then when
that target can be a creature or
a permanent.
Yeah.
So, or non-land permanent.
It's non-land, yeah.
So it could be put on like another enchantment or a creature or whatever. But when O-Ring leaves the field, the other thing comes back.
And when it comes back, just as a rules thing, it's considered a new copy of whatever it was.
Right. Some are a little more situational. Like
let's say you had this Goldforge Sentinel.
Right. And my opponent decides that they're going to play Revoke Existence. Exile target artifact or enchantment.
Since that's an artifact,
it just goes away.
Yep. And since this is a sorcery and not an enchantment like O-Ring was, it happens, goes to the graveyard. This means that Goldforge Sentinel just leaves the game.
It leaves the game, it's never coming back. Bye-bye. Alright, so that's exiling. Now on to
board wipes.
And targeting in general. Yeah. Now, we said before that Hexproof prevents things from being targeted. We said that things that have protection would prevent stuff from being targeted. But there are certain ways around this. Namely, what are lovingly referred to as board wipes, because they wipe the board. Something that's banned in most formats, but is still kind of a funny card, is this wonderful thing called Worldfire. You exile all permanents, exile all cards from hands, graveyards, and each player's life total becomes 1. So essentially, you just create a massive race. Now, all of these cards, like we just talked about, will be exiled. Now, Lavinia, over here, has protection from red. So you would think, oh...
To go over that, she can't be dealt damage, she can't be enchanted, she can't be blocked, and she can't be targeted by anything that's red.
Right. So you would think, oh, since she has protection, she wouldn't be exiled like everything else by Worldfire.
You'd be wrong.
You'd be wrong. Even though...
Here's why. Let's just go through the thing again. She's not being dealt damage by Worldfire. She's not being enchanted by Worldfire. She's not blocking Worldfire. It's not a creature. She's not being targeted because it says all.
Exile all.
Permanents.
Now, if it says... if something specifically says that it targets each and everything on the board... Then it has protection.
Yeah, then she would have protection. But for Worldfire, she's gone.
Yeah. It's usually referred to by players as a blanket effect, as in it affects everything. Things like that affect things that can't be targeted.
Yep.
Also, just as a little side note for targeting in general, if you can create some, like if you're going to target something, but then a player, like if someone plays an instant and then someone else plays an instant that gives something like protection, the thing that has protection now is considered like an illegal target.
Yeah.
And so the first spell would fizzle.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can, a part of Magic is getting around targets.
Like, say, here, let's go back to this card and this card. You were saying, revoke existence, exile this artifact. Let's say I had a God's Willing, which gives it protection from the color of my choice. I give it pro white. It can't be affected by a white that's targeting it.
So it's called an illegal target, and thus the spell fizzles.
Yeah.
However, what you can also do is say that Goldforged Sentinel were being... it was enchanted by an opponent, giving it a debuff. Like, something was saying that Goldforged Sentinel couldn't
Like, if there was a pacifism on it, so it couldn't attack or block, you could play God's Willing, say it has pro-white, it becomes an illegal target, therefore the white enchantment can no longer affect it, right. And the enchantment would fall off and fizzle.
Yeah. So, things that constantly, like, enchantments and artifacts constantly target a creature.
Yeah.
So if you can do anything to say that something can't be targeted, it becomes an illegal target and then fizzles. So
not artifacts, just enchantments.
Okay.
Anyway.
So there you have targeting. A part of Magic is also playing around with alternate win conditions. Now, usually your opponent has, for like regular formats, 20 life, or for like Commander and some other stuff, 40.
Two-headed giant, you have 30. Anyway.
Whatever. And then your job is to reduce their
life total to 0.
And then you win. However, there are a couple other things you can do to win. The most
common alternate win condition is milling.
Now, milling is essentially...
Can I just have an aside here? Sure. Milling is called milling because of a card called Millstone, which said tap, your opponent mills one card, and mill means put it from the top of your library into your graveyard.
Right. We should say you can lose a game if you would draw a card, but you can't if you have no...
Even if it's on your own turn?
Right.
Or even if it's on an opponent's turn, I should say, if they're forcing you to draw a card
and you can't,
have none,
because you have no library, you lose. So with like a mill deck, what you generally do is you have cards that say your opponent puts cards from the top of their library into their graveyard, and that way they get to a point where they would have to draw, but they can't, and so they lose.
Yeah.
And once everyone else is lost, you win. Now, there's also other cards like Laboratory Maniac or whatever that
says if you have no library, you win.
If you have no library and would draw a card, you win. So
there are cards like Biovisionary, which says if you have 4 copies of it out, you win.
There's Door to Nothingness, which is like you pay 10 mana, 2 of each of the 5 colors, tap it, and then a target player loses. So there's a lot of ways to win without just doing the regular damage.
More often than not, you're doing the regular damage.
Right. But just so you know that there are other ways to win. And other ways to lose. So if someone's pulling stuff out, making you draw a lot of cards, and making you mill a lot of cards, you might want to kill them.
Yeah, like fast. Fast. So, I mean, here's an example. We'll just, say they have nothing. If they're milling you, hit with everything. Every single one of those. And since we're talking about them having nothing and hitting, I'm going to talk about 1/1 counters now, because Markov Blade Master deals with 1/1 counters.
Alright. Now to make it simple, let's just get that by itself.
So, Markov Blade Master is a 3-drop, 1/1, with double strike. And it says, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on it. So, they have nothing, I hit. Since it has double strike, it deals 2 damage.
Right. The first strike and then the regular strike.
Yep. Since it dealt combat damage, you put a 1/1 counter on it.
Now,
or in this case, because this rule applies, right? The one I'm thinking of?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, never mind. Forget I said that. Doesn't matter. Keep going.
Anyway, so now since this has 1/1 counter, it kind of sounds like it kind of is like it sounds, it now has +1/+1 on top of its 1/1, so it's now a 2/2. Now, if it has like 2 1/1 counters, then it's a 3/3. If it has 3 1/1 counters, it's a 4/4, and it works just like that. However, 1/1 counters only exist as long as whatever they're on is on the field. So if Markov Blade Master were to die,
or if it was bounced,
to your hand, which we'll talk about in a second,
yeah,
and then you play it again, it doesn't have whatever 1/1 counters were on it. So it's kind of it's a temporary buff.
Yeah.
But a very useful one in many cases. I love 1/1 counter decks.
So do I.
They're a lot of fun.
They are fun.
So
now we're talking about bounce.
Now let's talk about bounce. So, say you're right about to attack with a Markov Blade Master. Your opponent might just not want that to happen, so they'll play, say, an unsummon. Return target creature to its owner's hand. So then you have to, Markov Blade Master would go back to my hand, and then I have to wait till my next main phase to play it, assuming I have the mana.
Yep.
Returning stuff to other people's hands is almost exclusively blue. I love doing it because it gets blockers and attackers out of the way.
There's a little bit in white, but that's mostly because it's white and blue.
Yeah. But it's very blue-centric, but it's always temporary because the people can just,
It's like a stall tactic.
It's a stall tactic, but sometimes it gives you all the time that you need.
Exactly.
There's one other important thing to note, and that's... Tokens. Now, say I have Markov Blade Master and a 1/1 token, and I decide I'm going to attack with both. Now, if my opponent wants to, they could play Unsummon on the Soldier. The Soldier would go back to my hand, but, this isn't actually like a real card. This is just a token, and tokens are treated like that. So it just essentially...
It fizzles.
It fizzles. I don't know if you want to call it exiled or not.
It's not exiling. It pings whatever zone it's going to, and then it ceases to exist.
So, yeah. And that's it. Very important about tokens. I don't think we said that before. If a token dies, it pings the graveyard. So it touches there for...
And then it ceases to exist.
And then ceases to exist.
Yeah.
But for stuff that would say like, whenever a creature goes to the graveyard...
That counts.
Yeah, it does trigger that. Same with, like, the Exile... No, there's not even really a zone for that, technically, right?
No.
Right. So, something to keep in mind.
Yep. Lastly, this was mostly a series of videos for teaching beginners how to play Magic. So, if there's a rule that we didn't go over, or that we messed up, and that's very, very possible.
Very, 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 very possible. I'm wrong about stuff in Magic.
So am I. So am I. That's part of the game, is arguing about rules. So if we messed up a rule, if there's something you don't get, either leave us a comment, or just look it up, because there are lots of people on forums. You can go to Gatherer, the Magic website, and they'll have rules for specific cards.
Yeah. And I would say, please comment to us, especially if we mess something up, but don't be a jerk about it.
Please.
We did this out of the kindness of our hearts to use as a resource for our friends and for our friends' friends. We're very happy to change stuff if we need to, but don't make us not want to do videos like this, please. Anyways,
thanks for watching.
Thanks for
sticking with us if you watched every video.
Yeah. We're planning on doing a mock game that utilizes a lot of the rules that we've been talking about, so you can just use it as a reference. So if you just want to show someone what it is a game to play, we'll talk through every single phase and every single action. So stay tuned for that in the coming weeks. But yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks for watching.
Later, YouTube.